rocket launcher. These are rifles, I'm guessing.
You see our machine gun over here? Over here's a machine gun.
Oh. Machine gun.
That is a Japanese machine gun. And that's one of our newest displays.
I'm guessing they caused a lot of damage.
And this young man here and a couple of his buddies confiscated that and they brought it back. And this gentleman had a bar. And he had it up above his bar, but then ATF came in and said no. So it's been with the LaSalle County Sheriff's Department since the 50s. And they finally got a hold of us and we worked with them and we got this display back in May. But that's a Japanese machine gun.
And there's a Japanese hand grenade.
Mm-hmm.
Why is there so much Japanese stuff?
Because that's a display. That's a display showing things that our soldiers brought back from when they fought over in Japan. Here's a cute little story about this Marine. This Marine was on a little island called Peleliu. And we always tell the story about how the crab saved Bill's life. He was kind of the front guy, and he was supposed to go out and see if he could find where the Japanese were on this island, and so he did. And he said to me, he says, they were probably from here to that wall from me, he told me one day. And he says, this darn crab, and he says, the crabs over there were about like that. They were big crabs. And he says, it kept nipping at me and crawling all over me. And he says, I took my bayonet and I stabbed it. And it let out a big scream. And so the Japanese started shooting at him. And they just kept shooting. And all of a sudden, they all stood up and they're just a jabbering and a hug. The crab, when he stabbed it. So these Japanese, they just were just a jabbering away and a hollering, and they took off and went away from where Bill was. And pretty soon, he says, all of a sudden, they just threw this crab right back over at him. The crab had crawled over there where the Japanese were, and they thought it was just the crab making the noise. They didn't realize that Bill was over here yet, and that's why they quit firing. So he got to get back with his group of guys. So the crab saved that soldier's life.
Those awfully clumsy son of a gun
This
things
gentleman
are
here is 92 years old
He
now.
just won in Vietnam.
He had a good life coming back home after that crab saved his life.
So basically, when they heard the crab let out like a screech, they just got scared and started shooting.
Shooting at him, yeah.
And then they thought it was just the
When
crab.
when the crab, yeah, he got to go back, yeah.
It's real.
Good crab, but bad crab. Because
Yeah.
you get at him and then you have to stab him.
Yep.
And that's, yeah. That one's looking at me.
This gentleman here, he served in World War I. And finally, a month ago, he got his Purple Heart. His records show he was entitled to the Purple Heart, and he had not gotten it. And the museum had worked, and they finally got his Purple Heart for him after all these many, many years. And his grandson got to come and be here when they presented the Purple Heart.
Do you guys have any Medal of Honors here?
We don't have any from right around here. We do have that gentleman that is a radio operator for Audie Murphy, who won the Purple Heart out front there. I can show you that and tell you that story. This is a gentleman that started the museum. He's a veteran of Omaha Beach, and his son is a Vietnam veteran. And he heads up our educational program now. This gentleman here is 96 years old. He lives in the nursing home over here. But for his 90th birthday, he got this special birthday card. And come to find out, he said it was from one of his flyers from the Second World War. He worked on the Corsairs, and it was from John Glenn.
John Glenn.
flew the Corsairs that he worked on.
Wow.
So he was very proud of that. I just saw him the other day. I saw him Wednesday.
Ball,
Yep, that was his job.
and it was like.
Had a little boy come in here one day and he wanted to know if he could
So
go
he had to
around
fly into the air.
and count the
That would be
purple
no
hearts.
fun
So he
sitting
went
down
around
there.
and was counting all the purple hearts.
That would be terrifying.
That's what
Yeah,
he wanted to
I
do.
would too.
Wow.
I'd rather go up.
You lit that airplane, see sitting on the ground, look at the windows in it. That'd have been a windy trip coming in.
Look at it. It's cool.
Army Air Corps, Second World War. It was after the Second World War, and they broke off and formed the Air Force, so they wore the brown. Don Peters from Pontiac. He flew 35 missions over Germany, pilot of a B-17. This is him and this is his crew. One mission. He was so sick in the hospital he couldn't fly, and his plane was shot down. Wondered the day he died why he wasn't on it. This gentleman here was standing in the doorway of B-17 that got hit and blew him out the door, and he opened his parachute and passed out. He woke up, he was in a German concentration camp. The bad part, he only had one leg. And there's an Australian doctor the Germans had captured, and he told him he had to amputate that leg or he'd have died. And his son said he never complained about losing that leg because he was the only person that lived off the airplane. Tuskegee pilot lives about 20 miles from here. They made the movie Red Tail about them because they painted the tail of the airplanes red. And Memphis Belle was a movie that was made. One of the people was in from the Memphis Belle and gave us that picture and autographed it. This is Korean here. War, very, very cold war. Lost 51,000 soldiers in 4 years. Different items brought back. Three brothers here that live in town just west of here. He was in Europe, he was in the Philippines. They didn't put brothers together after what happened to Sullivan boys. April 19, 1945, less than a month ago in the war in Europe, his mother received a telegram. She opened it up and said this boy was killed. 3 days later, she received another telegram telling her this son was killed. Lost 2 boys in 3 days. They brought him back home, man. His granddaughter helped us set this up, brought a few pictures in of the boys that died and her grandfather.
So only this one was the one that survived.
Yeah, it was this one right here in the middle.